you to think of it this way. Okay? When you are sick, you remember that illness if it was bad enough. If you had a broken arm or a broken leg or the time you smashed your front teeth, the time you landed really hard and knocked the wind out of yourself, you may not remember the feeling, but you remember it. It's still there in your data bank. Okay? Now, put that on a big scale. Okay? Later on in your life, if someone said, remember that time you smashed your tooth? Remember the time you fell down? You'd remember it, but you wouldn't remember the feeling of it. Okay? Some people can still do that, can still remember the feelings that they've had at a distant time because it comes back into their body right now because you are just a body unit of memory. But at the same time, you have a mass that you control, but you aren't the mass that you control. You are actually the mind in the mass, and you're actually the thing behind the mind that we call mind in that mass. I can't give the last key because people aren't ready for it, and until people stop generating things that can kill other people in supporting wars and supporting shooting and supporting killing of animals, then I can't tell people the key because they'll use it on ourselves, and that's the thing that I have to do. So I'm not lying, I'm just withholding and telling people that there's more to it, but I can't tell you the whole truth because the truth, everything I'm saying is truth. I'm leaving the last thing out because people aren't ready for it, and they can't do it anyway. And if they could do it, they would have to be clean and clear to even understand it. So there's no point of talking about it. So think about the medical record where if you were 90 years old, would you still remember what happened to you when you were 6? You can. You possibly can. But most people don't. Let's say most people, almost all people don't remember the stuff that happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even last week for that matter. Well, God being the Almighty, okay, just like a fingernail that you clipped off of your finger just 2 seconds ago, you remembered. Okay, that fingernail has life in it. Now, don't take me wrong. I'm not trying to downgrade or talk down about people, the human being, okay? But there are living things in your fingernail. There are living things about your skin and all over your body, everywhere. Everything is alive, okay? When you thought that you were your body, your medical records, and your memory are the two things that would serve you for the injuries and the pastimes that you've had. God itself doesn't need your body for that. God is, let's say the Akashic records is God's medical records. In my mind is God's spiritual records, the memories of God. I have tapped into that. Human beings can. Just like you can tap into a cabinet at a warehouse full of files and read some stuff about people you never knew. Well, the Akashic records are just like that. But there's no words to it. It's just wisdom. You just know. So you don't have all the words for people. They got to bring them up. They got to bring them out of you. And when they do, they'll get the answer. Exactly the answer they need. The truth about what they're looking for. The problem is people don't want to hear the truth. They don't, because they want it to be something that they're going to agree with. If they want to know, hey, what happened to this person, or what happened to this thing, what happened to my family member, what happened to my whatever. Of course they go and see a fortune teller and they say, oh, I see your mother, and your mother is doing great, and she says whatever, because they're comforting them. Or there's someone who sees this person could use a scare, or feels a vibration of unsurety in that person, and it makes them unsure. And if they are receiving signals, it'll make them think that their loved one or whoever they're summoning will say something like, oh, well, something bad is going to happen, or something horrible happens after this life, and you got to worry, and please do this, because those are light workers trying to tell other beings that they need to change. It may sound deep and scary, and some people may be like, my aunt told me that she died in a horrible thing, and there was torture, and diddly-doo. Like, it's done now, and your aunt was never her body. It was a spiritual being getting to experience through a body. And if that spiritual being that was in your aunt, that was tortured, would tell you about that, that was before they spiritually knew in a now moment, because it's always now, in this now moment, that they were only the body for a moment. And they were actually the mind and mental, spiritual being inside it. And when they got that, they would come back and tell you, hey, that was an experience that I needed. That's what I wanted this lifetime, and I just didn't know it until I had reviewed myself. Some people say it takes 49 days or all this kind of stuff about whatever. The energy is always there. All your past lives, including your family members, are always right there. Your life is always right there. In my own mind, in my own place, of a spiritual being that I am, I put everything that's going on in the present world into its own little section where I can't go until someone dies. And then their life becomes something I know about. But that's because I don't want to interfere with anybody. I don't want to interfere with free will. And I was smart enough to actually make it work. And because I explained that to spirit in a human way, in the words we use without speaking them, it felt it in my heart. It felt it in my soul. And you know what it did? It gave me the key to everything. That's why no one else knows this stuff. Not because I tried to figure it out. I was working 80 hours to 100 hours a week when this happened to me. I had no chance in hell to have had this happen and study and learn and do all this stuff. Like, I was listening to silly stuff like meditations that tell you, oh, take a deep breath and do this and this. Yes, the breathing is important. Then they are getting that. But they're putting their own stuff to it. Other people like how it sounds. They get used to it, and it works for them. So now that's a genius and a guru and a health specialist, and it's not. It was the person's mind themselves that was tricked into it. So the records that I know about, the lives that I've been, all of life is me. And I'm not saying that in a figurative way. I'm saying that in a serious, permanent expression on earth as a human being named Dan Alexander. I know God's memory. I know of existences and past civilizations that would make no sense to some people, and other ones that would terrify them so bad they would want to blow their own head off just because they wouldn't want to picture it. But I walk around with a smile on my face as a human being because this is the best way to be. This is the best body to have. These emotions are the best emotions to feel. And people don't want to hear that because their life may be going bad right now because in some way they were led that way from either the family they were born into, the school district they grew up in, the area or town or community they grew up around, or the country that they're in. If those 5 things could be dropped, which they can be, because they don't really matter, they're there, so they're in matter, but they don't matter mentally, physically, maybe, because they might try to harm you. But all in all, people aren't just coming to wield a sword at your head because you just don't agree with what they're doing. The problem is people are not thinking. So if not enough people think, the people that are in power, that have the money and the guns, will be feared, or will be in fear and feel threatened. And you know what they'll do? They'll send people out to stop you or shut you up because they don't get what you're talking about. It doesn't mean you're not right. In fact, a lot of times it's because you scare them for being so accurate that you might harm their power. And they'll kill you. I've been killed so many times, and I've been killed by people who are alive right now. A lot of them. And I could talk about it. But I'm not going to do that because that's interfering with their free will because death is nothing. The people they killed, even if it was somebody I knew, or even, like, I know somebody who led to somebody I know very well and loved, and I know who led to their death, and I know why it happened. But at the same time, I can't feel any remorse because of that. I feel remorse because that being that I knew died. And I'm not angry at the person who did it, but I do feel like I should step out and say, hey, I know about that, but then they would be worried that I would tell somebody and I would be in danger. My body would be in danger. So there's no reason for me to do that. So if I went above that and ratted on them and proved it, then I interfered with their free will. Things will happen on its own. God does do everything the way it's supposed to be. Not just in the form of what you've got. It's also the form of what was, what is, and will be. The will be energy does have an intention, and you're in it. If you get with the program, you can change it. But if you stick in the program, if you get with it and stay there and don't try to improve it, you'll malfunction. And that's what the world itself is doing. It's malfunctioning. Nature isn't. The world of human beings who made the word world are just human beings. We're just a parasite on a beautiful country, on a beautiful continent, in a beautiful world, in a beautiful galaxy, full of wonder and magic that no one would believe. Even the most seemingly genius would not understand any of it. And I know because I was the ones that just died. I was the ones that were the geniuses. And I answered all the problems that they had with ease. E equals mc squared was simple. The 3x plus 1 is simple. Simple. It was done like 1 plus 1. But then sometimes people be like, what's 655 plus 2015? Like, I don't care, man. Numbers aren't even there. They're just ways we figure things out. I've already got it figured out. So fuck the little tasks of trying to figure out silly math problems and figure out what somebody's thinking. Those things are stupid. That's how you develop these masteries. But you don't do them to show off. You don't do them to prove anybody. Proof is the biggest earthly sin. Because if you try to prove, you are showing that you might not know, or you have to make sure. And you don't do that when you know, when you are the truth. So, let's see. There's people online where if they're talking, they say stuff like, and, I just, these things came, and they came by, and, they told me this stuff, and, and I taught 20,000 people door to door, and I'm the nicest person, and they believe what I'm doing, so therefore it works for them, and I don't even know how I'm working it, but it's working, so therefore I must know what I'm doing, and I'm just in their head, and the world needs stuff, and I'm just the vessel. Like, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that wonderful woman. But at the same time, people that think that she's a healer, or that she is the light, or that she is enlightened of some sort, are completely wrong. Now, many people may not believe that Jesus existed. Many people may not even believe that Buddha or any of the masters existed. But if you believe that even one of them has, you have to realize that you're just giving all of them credit. And they've all been here. And I've been all of them. So, when I have been any enlightened being, and am now, I have to tell you that nobody that knows what they're talking about goes, unless you're trying to figure out a giant word or a way to put something into words simpler for somebody else. If you're just talking and someone says, so how'd you get where you were today? You go, because that's your brain outside yourself showing how it works. If you can't put your words together fast enough, that means your mind isn't working fast enough. When somebody goes, when I went to that place, that's because when they go to talk, they are talking faster than their brain can assimilate the words or even the theories that they're trying to come up with. That's an obvious thing if you really think about it. But the problem is, a true genius, is threatening to the world because every genius that's ever been was wrong, at least in some form or other. And that's the problem. Because they'll look at how I dress, how I act, and how I've been before, and think, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, so I won't listen to him. But if they could take the time to listen to me, or to Dan, without looking and trying to search my back history, then they would see. Especially if they listen with their heart and let it trickle down into their soul. Well, I wouldn't say trickle down, it's everywhere. But if you let go of it, it's just a hole. You lose the source, and you just get a hole. No more soul. But you can dig down into that hole. Instead of digging your way out, dig your way in. And find the center no matter how hard it is. Because that is the only way you'll find yourself. I'm here to help. I'm reaching out my hand. Just grab on, and let's go for the best ride you've ever had in any of your lives. Because this one life that we have is amazing. And it'll keep getting better and better when you listen to the right people who know what's going on. Love and blessings to you all. God loves you.